World War III and the draft may actually be upon us, as President Biden has issued an executive order approving the mobilization of thousands of reserve members of the armed forces back into active duty, as Biden uses his authority as president to bolster the number of active armed forces members for Operation Atlantic Resolve to assist in Europe. Also ordering active duty units and members not assigned to be part of the selected reserve. And as Biden has announced this over on whitehouse.gov, Operation Atlantic Resolve is now trending, as several people that I know that are in the reserves are becoming very concerned. But we should have expected this, as just recently at the NATO summit in Lithuania, political leaders were seemingly fawning over Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, practically climbing over Biden to get to him, where Biden later slipped about who was attacking who.
And ceasing his attacks on it, his inhumane attacks on Russia, by Russia on Ukraine.
And the president was not the only one, as a State Department spokesperson also made a similar remark.
We believe the war has been a strategic failure for Ukraine. A strategic failure for Ukraine. Thank you for the correction. I need more than one correction today.
Now, I, for one, don't understand how we would need to call up the reserves, or even in the most dire circumstances, activating the draft, as it seems everywhere I go in deep blue Los Angeles, there is an unlimited amount of people that would love to support Ukraine, and they've already made sure you know exactly who they are. Now, obviously, not all the people flying these colors are combat ready, but war is won through logistics, and somebody needs to assemble cluster missiles, or package rations, or at the very least, clean the toilets. So I'm just baffled at the idea that we don't see people lining up around the block volunteering to help win the war. Is it because basically none of the corporate media outlets are reporting on this? But looking at the statement from the US Department of Defense's website, they state that this will benefit troops and families, as they reaffirm their support to defending NATO's eastern flank during Russia's invasion, but also state that Ukraine is doing a remarkable job already. And what an interesting way to frame being called up to potentially be sent to the front line, saying that the war effort in Europe is going so well that the president has to order you back in active duty, but don't worry, this will only benefit you and your family. But then they specifically state this is not going to change the amount of forces we have in Europe. But when you look at military.com's article on the situation, they state that the US has already contributed $40 billion to Ukraine, but just last year, they increased our presence in Europe by 20,000, which totals 100,000 now. And again, what an interesting way to report how well we're doing in this conflict. Sure, this executive order doesn't say we're increasing the amount of troops that we have in Europe, but is it because we just increased the amount of troops we have over there? Or is it because we actually need to activate our reserves to fulfill that original commitment? Because they almost brag about the $40 billion they already sent to Ukraine, but just recently the Air Force reportedly had to suspend personnel moves and bonuses due to a funding shortfall. I know I've never operated an entire branch of the armed forces, but I'm pretty sure continuously sending billions of dollars overseas isn't going to help the fact that we can't pay our own people. That is, if we have any people left in the first place, as apparently the Pentagon finally dropped their unpopular medicine mandates this year, as last year the Army fell short of their recruiting goals by 25%. Do you mean campaigns like Emma Has Two Moms, military leadership focusing on understanding white rage, the promise of transition surgeries, and the opportunity to go on food stamps? Apparently all of that didn't work, because this is recruitment for the military, not a casting call for a Netflix original series. Because somehow, we let wokeness get so out of hand, it's actually becoming a national security concern, as NATO seems enthralled by Zelensky's appearance in Lithuania.
The bad news for you is, we're not going anywhere. You're stuck with us.
But apparently this was unsatisfactory to Zelensky, as apparently he took to social media to slam NATO right after, upset over not getting a timeline to join NATO, how it's unprecedented and absurd, as NATO countries don't necessarily want to get into a direct war with Russia. And again, interesting how that plays out. These political leaders don't mind using the taxpayers' cash, or printing and devaluing the currency of their citizens, or letting Zelensky's people get destroyed, as nobody wants to be the actual person that has to leave their homes, live in filth on the front lines for months, and then step on a landmine and never see their loved ones again, because I think a lot of this faux bumper sticker support is going to dry up once the draft becomes an actual probability, and at that point, it's too late. So if you appreciate my concise, lighthearted commentary on what's really going on in the world, hopefully I've earned your subscription, then go check out the video on the invasion in Spain that no one wants to talk about.